Welcome to the TriStar Podcast, where martial arts meets family, faith, and personal growth. Join Professor Brumitt and Professor Chris Beane as they share stories from the mat, lessons from life, and tools to help you and your family live like black belts on and off the mat. It's time to train the body, sharpen the mind, and strengthen the spirit right here on the TriStar Podcast.
All right, parents, quick question. Have you ever had one of those moments where you're thinking, am I trying my best? But what is any of this actually working? Because sometimes parenting feels like you're pouring everything you've got into the day and you're still not sure what's sticking.
Oh yeah, like you give a 5-minute motivational speech, let's say in the kitchen, and your kids respond by licking the counter. And when you realize that, you're like, okay, we're gonna need to do a different type of strategy here.
Exactly, and so really that's what we're talking about, and something that we're talking about here is encouraging and a little convincing, because in a good way. Listen, in a good way, and that's our daily actions. Our daily actions shape your child's future. I think more than most people or most parents think that they actually do.
Yeah, I agree, and a lot of parents, feel pressured, to actually shield their child from, if not every struggle, a lot of struggles, and maybe even every setback, every uncomfortable emotion. But those challenges, I think, handled the right way, are actually the building blocks of character and also resilience.
So, if you've ever wondered, do my daily actions really make a difference? The answer is yes. And not in a doom and gloom kind of way, more like in a more powerful than you think kind of way.
And by the way, if you haven't figured it out by now, you're listening to the TriStar Podcast. Of course, I am Professor Brumitt.
I'm Professor Beane. And in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the common parenting behaviors and explore their impact. Also, we're going to give you a very simple framework that you can use to influence discipline, confidence, and character without turning your home into a boot camp. So let's start us off by doing this myth, okay? This myth, I think, sneaks into a lot of our homes. Parents are often looking for that one big moment that changes everything. Maybe one deep talk, maybe it's one big consequence, maybe one special trip. And big moments do matter, but most of the time, character isn't built on one big moment.
Amen.
Character is built in small moments that are repeated daily, consistently. And here's why that matters. Because you believe change only happens, if you believe change only happens in those big moments, you'll start missing out on the power of those everyday things. You start thinking, I'll deal with that later, or we'll fix that when things calm down. But the everyday is where habits form. The everyday is where identity gets shaped. And parents, this is the part that is both freeing and challenging. You don't need a perfect day to influence your child. You need a consistent direction.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of actually saying it. Consistent direction. And let me say that again, consistent direction. Because parents, I think they hear influence and they think pressure. But influence is built in reps. And what I mean by that is just like the studio. Nobody gets stronger from just one workout. It's the reps that actually create that strength. So let's give you something that you can actually use, and we'd like to do that here. And it's what we call the daily influence framework. And so the idea is simple. Each decision that you make in a single day actually contributes to your child's development, I would say, more than you think. So it's really, really important. It's not just, like you had said before, it's not just the big speeches, but it's also your tone, your timing, your consistency, the actual way that you handle the stress, the way that you handle when they're stressed. So there's 4 steps to this daily influence framework. Number 1, identify the moment or moments. Let me say that again. Identify the moments. Number two, reflect on your impact. Number three, model the desired behaviors. And then number four is reinforce those, reinforce through feedback. And as we walk through each of these, because that's what we're going to do, keep in mind that parenting advice only works in a I would say in a quiet house with no kids and not and not parenting, and if that was the case, like if you're in a house with no kids, why have parenting advice? See, the parenting advice that we're again, it's advice, but we're giving you is, I think, going to be a good framework for you to be able to follow. And so, anyways, it's not a fantasy here. We're going to actually give you a genuine framework and walk you through that.
Well, I think the reason this framework helps is because it turns parenting from random reaction into some intentional training. You're not just surviving the day, you're helping to shape the day, right? And step number one is, again, to identify the moments. This is where you start noticing the situations during your normal day where your actions have an immediate impact on your child's learning and their growth. And these moments are usually not dramatic. They're usually
No.
they're usually inconvenient because they're usually happening when you're already tired. And listen, let me give you a kind of, let's say, do a real world example. Let's say it's Friday evening, maybe it's like 4:30 at night. You're getting ready for your son's karate class. He's still in his school clothes or his play clothes or whatever it is. He's staring out the window. He's not getting ready. In that moment, you have a choice. You can move from frustration mode to yelling, to threats, lectures, or you can go into leadership mode, calm, clear, and direct. Leadership mode would sound something like, hey, let's go over our checklist together. Now, the point isn't ever for us to raise our voice as parents. The point is for us to recognize this as a training moment. If you yell, he might move faster, but he might also connect that with getting ready, with anxiety. So every time it's time to get ready, the anxiety is going to come back because he remembers that time that you were yelling at him. He might learn that extra pressure and panic are the normal way to handle time. And then that puts him behind consistently as he's trying to manage his time as he gets older. But if you stay calm and you help him move through the steps, you're teaching discipline without punishment, without
Yes.
the reprimand, without the other side of it, right? You're modeling how to handle stress. And really what you're doing is you're building a pattern. So step number one, again, is to spot the movement. So let's say morning routine, something we talked about actually pretty consistently on this podcast here. Morning routines. Let's say homework time. I know we're moving into summer. As you're listening to this, it might even still be summer. Bedtime, screen time, sibling conflict, right? If you have more than one kid, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The car ride, going to the grocery store. And here's a helpful question. Is this moment, listen, in this moment, am I going to train something on purpose or is it going to be on accident, right? That's the question you want to think about as you're going through these things. In this moment, am I training something on purpose or on accident?
Yeah, and parents, listen. If you want a quick shortcut, the moments that trigger you the most are usually the moments that train your kids the most. Let me say that again. The moments that trigger you the most are usually the ones that actually train the kid the most. And it's not fun to hear, but it is true. Anything else you want to say about step one before we moved into step two?
No, sir. I think that lands very well.
Okay. So step number two, reflect on your impact. Let me say it again, reflect on your impact. And this is where you actually take a moment after, you take a minute after the moment and you actually review what happened. Not to beat yourself up, but, not to spiral off into, just to learn. Because reflection, I think, turns experience into wisdom. When you take time to reflect, it allows you to turn that experience or experiences into wisdom. Now, without reflection, we actually repeat patterns because we are creatures of habit. And so we're going to repeat those patterns, even the patterns that we don't like. So, let's take that Friday night that you were talking about, and you're trying to get your kid to their martial arts class, and you're rushing around maybe, and you said some things you didn't want to say. Listen, did the questions you want to actually reflect back and just start asking yourself, look, did I stay calm and patient? Was my approach effective? It's okay if it wasn't, and it's okay if it was. How did my child respond? And look, here's another scenario. Let's say your daughter comes home upset about a disagreement with her partner in class. And, maybe she's frustrated, maybe embarrassed, whatever it is. And you have some options here. You can dismiss it and say, oh, suck it up. You'll be fine. I don't know about you, but, I came from that era where my dad was kind of like, suck it up. Or you can go into what some parents do. You can go into straight fix it mode. Here's I think what you should have, or you could actually say this. You could say, well, here's what you should have said, like if you're in fix it mode. Or you can lead her through it. Let me say that again. Or you can lead her through it. And you can start, obviously, by acknowledging, that sounds really tough. I can see where that upset you. And then you help her think about it. Don't tell her what to think. Help her think about it. Just ask, what do you think happened? What do you wish would have actually been different? Or what do you wish you could have done different? Or what could you have done different? Or what are you going to do next time? What are you going to try next time? And see, that reflection actually teaches emotional intelligence. It teaches conflict resolution skills. And for your child as well, it's going to teach them resiliency. And here's what I want you to hear as a parent. Your child they don't just need correction. They need coaching. Correction is about the behavior, but coaching is really about growth.
And I think coaching, that kind of terminology there, it takes the pressure off of the fix it right now. It shifts you from helping them to learn. And really what that does is that's a totally different energy, not just in that situation, but it changes the energy, the emotions that you have in your house, in your home. Yeah. And okay, so we're going to move into step number 3 here. And step number 3 is, again, to remind you, is model the desired behaviors. This part is really simple to understand, but is very tough to put into action. It's hard to live out. Kids learn. We've talked about this again before. This is rehashing it, but it bears repeating. Kids learn by watching. And listen, kids learn by watching, and they watch stuff that we wish that they didn't. Both, out in the real world, they see things probably that we wish that they wouldn't see, and they see things from us that we wish that they wouldn't see because they're around us so frequently. They watch how we talk to people. They watch how we handle stress. They watch how we handle disappointment, how we talk about ourselves, how we talk about them sometimes. They're peeking in, they're trying to listen and seeing what we're saying. So if you want your child to be respectful, you need to model that respect. If you want them to be calm under pressure, model that calmness. If you want them to be disciplined, model that disciplined follow-through type of action. And listen, here's the key. Modeling is offense and defense. So listen again, modeling is offense and defense. Offense is doing things the right way. Defense is avoiding the wrong things like exploding or sarcasm or consistent negativity, even saying things like, I'm fine, when you're clearly not fine. So let's use this in a story. This is going to be just a fictitious story, so I don't even have to worry about saying this person's name is Sarah. Imagine Sarah, a mom who wants her son to be more disciplined and confident, but she's frustrated because, he struggles with new things. So after a tough session, she's about to react, but instead she takes a breath, she steps back, and she models resilience. She says, hey, buddy, I know this is hard for you right now, but let's take it one step at a time. You're doing great by trying your best, and I can see you're trying your best. That's not just being nice. That's training a mindset. Hard doesn't mean that you have to stop. It weeds that out. Hard doesn't mean to slow down. Hard means just to slow down, but you have to keep going, not to stop, right? Hard means to slow down, but you keep going. You keep pushing through it, even though it's challenging, even though it's tough. So here's the practical step. Pick one area, just one. I know there's probably many. Pick one area where you would like your child to improve. Maybe it's time management, respect, emotional control, confidence. Pick one and ask yourself, do they see me doing that?
Wow, that is the question, right? Because we're talking about modeling. Yeah, I'm sorry, I want to cut you off, but that's a really good question.
Yeah, right. Do they see me doing that? Right? Think about yourself. And maybe really what you need to do is pick one area where you would like to improve, and you could bring your family, your kids along with you. And then you can say, do they see me doing that way? How am I handling respect or emotional control, confidence, time management, whatever that area is? If you want your child to manage time well, but every morning is chaos, you're yelling, you're sprinting, they're learning chaos, not time management. So the goal here isn't to be a superhero. It's to be human and to align yourself with a human type of growth. Small changes. Wake up. If it's the morning time madness that you're dealing with, wake up 15 minutes earlier. Take one deep breath before you respond. Don't just fly off the handle. Take a deep breath, step back, use a calm checklist instead of a loud lecture.
And look, parents, just keep it real. If you're thinking, oh, great, now I have to be perfect. No, you don't. But you do have to be honest about the situation. And if you want your kids to grow, you have to be willing to grow too, because the behavior that you want to see in them, we have to make sure that we are modeling that as well. Now, step number 4, reinforce through feedback. Let me say that again, reinforce through feedback. This is where a lot of parents actually, accidentally get off or go off the rails, if you will, because we think feedback means criticism. Constructive feedback is really different. It's guidance plus encouragement. It's specific, it's calm, and it actually focuses on what to do next. So here's, excuse me, here's an example of a simple structure, if you will. Say it again: notice, name, next. So what I mean by that, notice what's happening, name the skill or value, and then give a next step. So for example, your daughter is upset after that conflict. So instead of, why did you, saying, why do you start an argument? Or why did you start the argument? Maybe try this. Say it sounds like things got heated. That happens sometimes. And then say, look, I'm proud of you for telling me about it. And then say, next time, let's practice one phrase that you can use when you feel it escalating. You see, that builds them, and that it's not feedback that actually crushes them. It builds them up. And parents, correction without connection doesn't land. Connection is first, and then correction, and then obviously the next step.
And that's where so many homes change, right? Because the kid doesn't feel like they're attacked. They feel like they're being guided. And that's a big difference. Okay, so let's put all 4 of these steps together in one scenario. Here it is. Your daughter has a belt test next week. She's nervous and she's doubting herself.
That's a good one. So let's bring in the steps here. Step 1, identify the moment. So you notice, she's quiet in the morning. You don't ignore it like some parents do. No, okay, something must be wrong. Don't ignore it. You just say, hey, big week coming up. It's okay if you feel nervous. And then you watch whether, she's holding back or, especially like in practice, watch and see whether she's holding back in practice. But just, see what happens when you say that phrase to her.
Okay, now we'll move to step number 2 is reflect on your impact. After practice, after you see her practicing, ask her, did I help? Did you ask yourself this, okay? Did I help her feel capable today? Right? This is a reflection question for you. Did I accidentally add pressure? Right? So as you're watching her go through that, ask yourself these things. Did I help her feel capable today? Or another one you could ask is, did I add pressure today?
Yeah, and then step 3 we talked about is model the desired behavior or behaviors that you want. So you narrate your own calm follow through. So I don't feel like doing this, but I'm going to do it step by step.
Well, and speaking of step by step, we'll move to step number 4, which is reinforce through feedback. You give some specific praise. I saw how focused you were during sparring. That shows the control that you have. And the next step that you could take is next time, try to take one deep breath before you go in.
Yeah. And then now she has, clarity. She's, she knows that she's been heard or felt, right? She's been supported. And then she has a plan.
All right. So now let's go through some things that might go wrong on this, right? Because of course we live in a real world and that's how things work, okay? A lot of parents think that talking about values is enough. Be respectful, be disciplined, be confident, but our kids need to see it in real life in a daily way, right? When you're tired, when you're frustrated, when things didn't go your way. That's where the real curriculum, if you're thinking about this as a school ways, if that's where the real curriculum happens.
It is. Life is. Yeah, I love that because life is a curriculum, and we're constantly teaching. And if you're listening and thinking, man, I've blown it, just remember, repair is a part of influence too. So owning it, apologizing, resetting, that is actually leadership.
So let's bring all this together. Okay, parental influence is really your impact that you have through your behavior on your child's development. And the most important thing is to remember this. Your child watches you more than they listen to you. What you do more than what you say shapes their future. And here's your challenge. For this week, observe your own behavior for just one day. Not with shame, but just with curiosity. Notice the moments, reflect on your impact, model the behavior that you want, reinforce with feedback that builds.
I think that wraps us up, sir. So thanks everybody for listening to the TriStar podcast.
You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts for more episodes that challenge and equip parents to raise better humans through practical wisdom and real-life tools.
Until next time, be the example. I encourage you to be the example that you want your children to follow.
Thanks for joining the TriStar podcast, where black belts begin at home. Connect with our community by visiting tristarkarate.com. Follow us on social media and share this episode with a family who's ready to grow stronger together. Until next time, stay focused, stay faithful, and keep training like a champion.